as usual, this is the series where we are currently doing management accounting techniques, which is of course, it's in the name, the management accounting unit of the level 3 qualification, where you'll be tested on various skills involved with management accounting, including spreadsheet skills. And this exam, it's meant to be for 2.5 hours. It consists of 6 questions, and 4 of them are just standalone and 2 are spreadsheet based in Excel. And of course, you probably have heard about it. This is on the paper. They're supposed to be one of the better unit for the results wise, comparing to the business awareness or the FAPS unit. Maths tend to give you a better chance of performing well, and of course to boost your overall outcome. So in this module, we have lots of different kind of assumptions, formulas. You learn about those, how to make like sets of calculations from the given numbers. There's not much logic involved there, but we will still have some way to understand how the accounting processes work internally when it comes to process accounting or the management accounting here. And then for today, we have 2 chapters we are covering from the maths unit. First of them is going to be materials, and the second one is going to be labor. What do you mean by materials? What do you mean by labor? We learned about that all in level 2. Some people may ask me that, but is it because we just know them? They're part of your costing. The new thing we're going to learn, it's going to be all based on what you learn already. You've done that on level 2. It doesn't matter, because we'll be learning on every further levels as well. It's just one level in advance. It's just going to be more complicated or become difficult as you move along your units, but with proper commitment, and then of course with good guidance, you'll be ace these questions absolutely well when it comes to the exam. So here, let's look at these slides, what I have planned for you. Let's start with the first one. Let me just quickly check the Teams whether it's recording or not. I just want to make sure. Let me check. It does have the recording. Yes, that's fine. So here, what we're going to do now, we're going to look at management accounting techniques, the purposes of it. We went through that last time anyway, but still want to keep it there at the beginning. What we're going to be covering today, how we're going to look at the different attribute of cost according to the organizational requirements. So that is 20% of your outcome. So your questions can be purely based on material or labor or overheads, which you may learn later on, but they will be all equal to about 20% of the overall outcome. So it's going to be very important what you're going to learn today. And then of course, out of that 6 tasks, it could either fall under the human marked one, which is the computer based one, or it could be human marked one is the Excel based one, and the computer based one, it can be going on either one of them. So we will see some practical questions later on of that. So first thing is materials. So what is the crack with this materials? What they mean by materials? It's what they use in the production, and possibly something which will be outside the production. But you also have to remember, these materials go into the process in certain ways. You're looking at it like, raw materials. Sometimes we can use that raw material to give you finished units, and then for that same material, what we finish could be a raw material for the next process. So therefore, we have to be very careful.
Switch off the power.
Yeah, and sorry about that. Just try to switch off something quickly. So here, we need to carry those materials in our inventory. So the first thing we look at it, if you're holding some inventory, it's going to cost the business. For example, what is that cost? For example, one of them is going to be storage, because if I'm going to store something, you have to pay rent towards it, heating towards it, lighting towards it, insurance towards it. There is a cost of having the inventory. And then also you have to pay for the inventory itself. That is another cost. And then also you may have to charge an ordering cost, because when I'm going to make an order, it's going to cost me ordering that inventory. So therefore, those all costs coming into play there, like we have the storage cost, ordering cost, and the cost of inventory, they're all in there. But for me, I need to make sure I order them in a economically sensible way. For that way, we have devised a formula. Not we, it's the accountants of the world. They decided, okay, there can be something we can use it to calculate my order quantity, where I can order the best value for the business. So for that one, what we do, we call that the economic order quantity, EOQ in short terms. The formula for that one, it's going to be this. EOQ is going to be equal to the square root of 2 times cost of ordering multiplied by demand divide by cost of holding for one single item of inventory. That means if I have 10,000 pounds cost of holding, that including the rent, it's including the rates, if it's the heating cost, insurance, warehouse supervisor, I have 10,000 pounds cost there, and I have 100,000 items. So one item would cost me £10 holding cost. That is for the annually. 1 year, that's what it cost me.
1 year, that's what it'll cost me.
I think I'm hearing some echo there, but I think it's fine. So here, for example, there is an example question. They have given you business uses 10,000 units of raw materials each month. It costs them £10 to place an order and £1.50 to hold 1 unit of inventory for the year. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring my trusted calculator here. Yeah, let me bring the calculator. I hope it has the scientific formula. Yeah, I have the scientific formula here. So we're probably able to put that number into question. So here, the formula is 2 times cost of ordering times the annual demand. Okay, so we have to remember what is the cost of ordering here. So per item or per order, it's going to be costing £10. So I'm going to do 2 times 10 times. Per month is going to be 1,000 units, but that is per month, isn't it? So we're going to multiply this by 12 to find the annual demand. So that is going to be altogether the total number. I need to have it as my denominator is right at the top, the numerator. It's going to be 240,000. And they're also saying here it costs them £1.50 per unit to hold them in my inventory. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide by £1.50. I'm getting 160,000. If I have that one, let's quickly press this formula here to find out what is the square root of it. So that means they are saying to you, what is the best number of ordering quantity? How many items I need to order in each one of my orders? So I'm going to press that button. It tells me it is 400. So that means I need to order every time there is a 400. So that means we can keep on ordering 400 until it gets to a level, we can call it the buffer level. So it reaches that, and then we need to make sure we order 400. Like that means we need to be having some sort of a reorder level. We will get to that bit later on. But for you, the economic ordering quantity, according to what we have calculated, every time I make an order of 400, I am doing what is best for the business, because that is going to be economically viable. So that means you may have to order 2 times every month plus. Means sometimes if I say that 400 every time, so let's say here, what is the annual demand? So if I'm going to say 1,000 times 12, I have 12,000, divide by 400 every order. Yeah, so I need to make 30 orders. So if I'm going to make 30 orders, divide by 12 months again, it's going to be 2.5. So every month I need to order 2.5 times. So yeah, it just makes sense. How many orders you need to do in a year? So let's say 30 orders. Now, we'll see some more example questions later on. The next part is the inventory management key calculations. These ones, sometimes you'll be better off memorizing some of it, but it is not absolutely necessary because you can think about what is a key way of assuming these numbers. So, for example, they're asking here, what is a buffer inventory? What is the meaning of buffer? If you think about a buffer, it may be something like kind of a breathing space. It is where my reserve is going to be. Means, can you remember in your vehicle, when you put fuel in, the the fuel gauge goes up all the way to the top. You start driving there, and it reaches a certain level. A light comes up on your dashboard. It says here, a warning, you reached your reserves. That means what they're telling you. They want you to make sure don't run out of fuel. That means you need to go find a petrol station. I know we all feeling that pinch now, aren't we? It's like 25p more than what we paid last month. And yeah, we curse ourselves like saying, oh, how much I need to put in there. I need to make sure I can only fill up all the way up to the maximum inventory level. So that means when I'm going to refill it, the refilling amount, it's going to be from the time of your buffer until the level your petrol tank can take that fuel. So that means that is the maximum inventory level. So if I'm going to talk about my tank has, let's say, 60 liters capacity, there's a 10 what is that again, liter of reserve on my tank. So the maximum reorder means I can only put up to another 50 liters of fuel. But what is the reorder level? That is where you need to make sure you need to be prepared. But I can't use the same analogy here with the petrol station, because normally when you make an order, you need to remember it takes time for the delivery to come to you. We call that the lead time. So if I'm a business, I'm ordering something for my production, I may have to wait maybe 5 days to maybe 20 days. So it's going to be 5 or 25, 20 days, 25 days. So 5 to 25 days, that's easier. If I say 5 and 25 days, what is my average lead time in that case? I can be either 5 or 25, add them together, divide by 2. So average is going to be 15. And what is the meaning of average usage? So we can count how many times we use. Like, for example, during 1 week, we have used 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So we add them all together. 150 divide by 5 days. The average is per day we're using 30. So that is how we find the average usage and the average lead time. And then you're going to multiply them together plus whatever the buffer inventory level we have found out. Okay, so that is how we can redo this formula. But they will give you some of these numbers, so do not worry about it. These ones, we will put that into practice when you get to the questions later on. The next part is how to cost the issues of raw materials. So in here, the raw materials are something we're going to be buying, and then we storing, and then we're going to give it to the production department. What is the production department going to do? They're going to start making outputs with them. So once they're going to put the output, they're going to give us either the finished goods or some of them which are not completely finished. We call them the work in progress. We're going to see how they work later on as well. So for example, there are two allowable methods for level 3 students. We either can do first in first out, which is FIFO, or we can use the average costing, which is AFCO. So the difference between them, it's illustrated properly here. So this is my inventory we have. For example, if you go and look at that mouse here, it's showing you this is my inventory. I have received 1, 2, 3. So when I'm going to issue to the production, I'm going to give what we received on the first day. So the older stock will be given to them. Can you see the prices are increasing, same like the price of petrol increasing every day here? I know, very sad to see that. But then again, when I'm going to issue that, what is that going to do? My closing inventory is going to have a higher value. If I'm going to do the AFCO, on the other hand, we're going to put them all together in one big pile there. and then we clump them together and find an average price. How are we going to do it? All the costs are added together and divide by the quantity. So we will give you an average value of one item. So what we're going to do, we're going to have an average value of 12 pounds there, because if I say 10, 12 and 14, add them all together, it's going to give you 36. Divide by 3, because there were 3 items there. Each one of them has an average value of 12 pounds. This cost will be keep changing because your average changes when you have new inventory in your stock. That's what they say. Oh, we bought them with the current prices, so your fuel price is going up. Even though the cost of fuel comes down, we hardly see the price ever comes down straight away. But they're very quick to up the prices. But then again, they will say, oh, that's how the businesses work. But I will say there's a lot of bull. It's more like a price gouging. But everybody does it. Nobody there to stop them. But what we have to just bear that and then carry on accounting. Let's do it. So now let's look at the next one here. We also think about what is the meaning of material wastage. Luckily, in the current qualification, we don't do process accounting anymore. We used to, and the process accounting means we account for wastages within the business, wastages during different levels of processes. And then also the wastage could be either above or lower than your accepted wastage. Therefore, you can have an abnormal gain or an abnormal loss. We don't do them anymore. But there are in some books, I think Osborne still have them in their books, but it does not get tested in the exam anymore. I think for the knowledge base, you can learn about it, but I'm not going to waste too much time with that one. But you still need to know, if I'm going to sell something, but you also have to consider what are the wastages from the total production. What could be that down to? Quality control, because I can produce so much items there, but I probably have to check some of those items like stack test, drop test. We need to make sure we check the quality of it by punching them or breaking them, or like, checking the temperature, because we have to poke a probe through there and then we cannot sell it. We just have to chuck that away because it's been damaged in that quality control product process. But that will be part of the total production. So when they give you a sales volume and they give you wastage percentage, those two information will be allow you to find the total production. We'll see that. And then also, whatever the material used during the production side of it also has to be count with the material, because some of the materials we buy, when we're going to put that in the process, it will be naturally wasted anyway. Like if you buy the cloth materials, if you want to make clothes from it, the fabric, you cut there and you obviously waste some of those fabrics. You can't be 100% perfect with the fabric there. So when I'm going to buy them, I also have to consider what is the allowable waste on those. We will see some of that questions later on. So here we have some questions I can work now with you. Let me find out where is my Excel file. Yeah, I got the Excel file here. Let me close it. I don't need that anymore. All right, here we have several questions we can work on. Let's start with the reorder level. So then asking you here, please remember, I'm going to bring that from the PowerPoint presentation, the formula. So we won't forget about that formula now. So we will keep the formula here hidden on the side, just to help us with that. Okay, so they're saying you here, Stephen and Sons uses an average of 8,000 units per week, although actual usage can vary between 6,000 and 10,000 units of raw materials per week. It can take between 1 and 5 weeks to receive goods after the order has been placed. So they're saying here their warehouse can hold up to 35,000 units. And then they're also saying here the business keeps an inventory of 5,000 units in the reserve. So that means the usable number of units from these two statements we know is 30,000. That should be your maximum reorder level or maximum inventory level. Your maximum inventory level is 35, means I can only reorder up to, so I'm going to put that here, maximum reorder quantity. Oh, but they didn't ask you that first, is it? So they ask you a different one. Okay, let's do the A first. Okay, for A, What is the reorder level? So let's go back here and check what they're talking about, the reorder level. Reorder level is average usage times the average lead time plus the buffer inventory. So for me, the reorder level will be that amount. So what we know, which is my average usage. Average usage is 10,000 plus 6,000 divided by 2, because they between that number, they already given you 8,000, so that is fine. So we're going to say 8,000 times, what is the average usage? The average usage, not usage, sorry, the 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 lead time. The lead time between 1 and 5 weeks. So if you add them two together and divide it by 2, you're going to get 3 weeks. So that is my, wait a minute. No. Yeah, I put a formula with the brackets there. So we have that, and plus, what is the buffer level of inventory we have? The buffer is the reserve. Reserve is 5,000. So the calculate the reorder level means, so when we reach 29,000 units, I need to reorder. Why is that? Because you may receive the stock on the average usage and the average what do you call the lead time. So if you know, look at that here, average usage times the average lead time. So that is going to be giving you the amount of inventory which you may get it just before you reach your reserves. But even if it's slightly late, I can specially use that 5,000 units in the reserve there. So what is the answer for the B? B is, they're asking you, what is your maximum reorder quantity? So if I'm going to say the maximum reorder quantity is going to be the maximum inventory level minus the buffer inventory. So what is my maximum inventory level? It's going to be
35.
equal to 35,000. Absolutely. So minus, what is your minimum inventory level, or which is the buffer inventory level? It's going to be your 5,000 in the reserve. Excellent. If you put them together, that is the maximum reorder quantity. Because for me, I can order 30,000 at one time. I cannot order more than that, because what if those inventory comes in before we reaches the what do you call the buffer level? We will have too much inventory there, so there's a possibility that could be wasted. So we cannot order in any level more than 30,000 units. And then what is the C? It's just asking you what is the minimum inventory level. So minimum inventory level, how are we going to do it? It's going to be the similar question. It says the average usage times the average lead time. Again, the same process here. The average usage is going to be 8,000 times average lead time is 3, is 24,000. So that is the minimum order quantity. So every time I'm going to make an order, I must make the reorder quantity. The level is where, when you're going to order, the quantity is how much you're going to order. That's the two differences. Now let's see this question here. It is also a similar type of questions. So let's see the first one here now. A business has looked at its inventory control levels and has the following information. The buffer inventory is 900, reorder level is 1,500, maximum order quantity is 1,500. The business has looked at the delivery time and the usage of the raw materials, and it has the following data. Usage is between 1 and 300. So for me, the average usage is going to be 100 plus 500, and I'm going to divide those numbers by 2, divided by 2, that is 300. Average lead time, it's going to be equal to how many days they're saying there? It's 1 week to 3 weeks. Obviously, you know that is going to be 2. Okay, so that is straight away is an answer there for you, because 1 plus 3 divided by 2 is 2 weeks. In average, you'll receive it. They're asking you what is the minimum reorder quantity. So the reorder quantity is going to be multiplying these two numbers. So if I'm going to say that, that's going to be equal to that times that. Find the average number, you will be able to use that anytime. And then they're asking here, calculate the maximum inventory level. So what is the maximum inventory level is? The maximum reorder quantity. Can you see that here? Plus the buffer inventory. The formula is very clear here, what they're saying. Buffer plus the maximum reorder. So you will be able to can have up to that many units there. So that's going to be 900 plus the 1,500 units is 2,400 there. As long you remember this sum of it, but they are like all rearranged anyway. But let me make one thing clear. The questions on these things are very seldom. You get it once in a while for 1 mark or 2 mark. But this one on the EOQ, though, the one we seen earlier, economical order quantity, you see that often. So please remember the formula for EOQ is 2 times the cost of ordering times the annual demand divide by cost of holding for 1 unit, and you have to do the square root of the whole number we found out from there. Okay, so that is the way you have to do it. So I'm just going to go back into that slides, and then I'm going to remind you how would I remember it if I'm going to talk about this. They will say this formula is going to be 2 CODs divided by chips. COD divided by CH. So COD and chips, 2 times CODs there. And you have 1 chips underneath there. And then the square root of it. That may be the packaging. You never know. But remember it. This is the best way of remembering this formula. And then they say, oh, yeah, come Friday, you remember economic order quantity. When you go into the chip shops, you can tell them, I learned something there. I'm connecting your chippies. So here we go. Food for thought. So let's look at the next question now, guys. This is the inventory calculation. So here they have given you some information now. They have given you here to fill out the boxes. So they want you to calculate the amount of balances on the 16th of August using either FIFO and the AVCO method. So for one thing I know here though, they're giving you 150 items at 150 kilograms of it for the value of 150 pounds. But I would simply do, in this question, we didn't have that, but I'm going to do that here, per kg as well. So in that case, we would find what is the average cost when it comes to the AVCO. So let's see here what happens. This one is the receipt. What will happen to my balance when you receive new stock? We need to make sure we will find the total value first. So that times that. Is that going to give me 240? But how much is the inventory now? This is going to be that plus that. And this one is going to be equal to that plus that. Okay, so at the moment my total value of the inventory is 350 kilos, but they are valued at 390 because we received new stock with a higher value. Otherwise, if they stayed at £1 per kilo, like you see here, this is equal to this divided by that. Okay, but I'm not trying to find the average value yet. Why? Because I'm a bit skeptic, because we're not looking at AFCO. We're looking only FIFO at the moment. In the exam, they didn't ask you what is the average value, but it's also very important to know what will be the number here, because here they have issued 250 kilograms of product. So if I'm going to give out 250 grams, where I'm going to take my stock from first? Am I going to take anything random? No, because we are using the FIFO method. So first in has to be first out. So out of these stock, which stock we had it first? That is the stock we paid £1 for it. Okay, so that is the stock I need to be using. Is it enough for that 250 kilograms? No. So I need to have all of that 150 plus another 100 kilograms of this £1 20 pence. So the calculation will be like this way. It's going to be whole of that value plus 100 kilograms times the £1 20. So what is that going to be? 100 times 120 is 120 pounds plus the 150 pounds. It's got to be giving me 270 pounds there. So this is the value of my stock. But what we got left over, we're going to say this one going to be this minus that. It is going to be giving me only 100 kilograms of my value. And what is the value of this? This minus that. Let's prove it, because do we have any of this 150 kilogram? No, that 150 kilogram is now all finished. Do I have anything of this 200 kilograms? Yes. I'll put an orange color there because it's only some of them left there. So here I'm going to say this is going to be purely a yellow. So I'm going to call that yeah. So it is only partial stock of that 200 kilograms left. But now we are receiving another receipt. What is the value of it? So I'm going to quickly copy this and then paste it here. That gives you 325 pounds. So I'm going to put a different color. Let's do that blue here. So what we now know, this one will give you a new inventory value. What is the new inventory value? It's going to be equal to that plus that, which is my the total kilograms. I have 350 because I already had 100, and now how much we have here? 120 plus this 325, which is going to be 445. But what is the problem now? The prices keep on increasing, so therefore it's no longer £1.20 a kilo. So if I'm notice that here, this divide by that, it gives me 120. Yeah, it seems to be fine, but it's no longer 120 because the new inventory has changed the value, but we didn't have to do it. Now let's see here. I need to issue another 200 out. So what I need to do here, where I'm going to take it from, can I take it from this 250? Do you think? No, because I cannot take it from there first. Where first I need to do, I need to take from this 100. First in, this is the one is before the 250, so we're going to take that 100 there. So we're going to say here equal to this 120 plus another 100 of this £1.30. So here times 130. Close this one because no 130. I should have said that 130. The total value is going to be 250 pounds because it's 120 here and 130 here. The total value for 200 items is going to be that. And I'm going to give that a nice little green color. Why? Because yellow and blue gives me green. And what is left over here? Do I have any of the yellows? Do I have any of, I should have said it's an orange. Let me change that to yellow. It's easier if I do that. Yeah. Do I have any more of this yellow stock? No. This yellow stock does not exist anymore. So therefore, this one, which is going to be what we have given out now, what is left is going to be 150 minus this 200, which is 100. So 350 minus 200 give you 150. And then also this minus that is going to be 195. Let's find out the average. This divide by that, it gives you £1.30, which is exactly the blue stock. That is the blue stock. It's nothing left from this 150 or this 200. Neither of them. It's no longer in my inventory because I have given them all out. I am only left with this 150 from that inventory, which cost me £1.30. Okay, that is the FIFO method. But now let's look at the AFCO method. AFCO method is also similar, and this one is going to be average instead of what we have done earlier, because it's going to be all similar until you get to the average price. So let's have a look at this quickly, shall we? So here the amount is going to be equal to that plus that. Yeah, and then we find the number here. This is going to be that times that, and also I'm going to copy and paste it here. It won't make any difference. It's going to be the same numbers we found out here, but the only difference is now we're going to find an average cost. How I'm going to find the average cost? Let me show you that. So here 390 for 350 items. The average cost in this scenario, this divide by that, it gives you £1.11 and so on. It just carries on. Let me introduce some extra decimal. Can you see here? It just goes on and on with different numbers, but I'm just going to keep it to 2 decimals, which I will do that here when I'm going to multiply the 250 stock. So what I'm going to do here, enter that value I'm going to do to 2 decimals, and then this number will be that times that number here, which gives you £278 and 57 pence. What you now see here is need to be in the whole numbers. What I will do, I will reduce the decimals. I will get 279 there because my average value is, this is how much I'm getting for it. Okay, but what is the leftover? Oh, sorry, it's my fault. I should have had that number other way around. I missed that here. So this is going to be equal to that times that number. Sorry, I shouldn't have had that extra number there. Right, 279. But what is left over? How much stock left over at the moment? If you look at that here, this is that minus that. 250 minus 150. So this is definitely a number. Okay, hold on. You have that number, just number. Yeah, just the number. And here, what is the value of it? It's going to be same value as before here, that number. And then what is the value of the inventory? It's going to be equal to, after that, that times that. It gives you £111. Can you add these two numbers? Can you see these two numbers? If you add them together, will you get that number there? Absolutely. If I add these two numbers, you get that number. Now we have a new stock for £325. We add that together. So here add these two numbers. We will get that. And then the total value of that is going to be that amount plus 325, which will give you 436. And what is the average price for it? So this is going to be divide that by 350. It is going to be £1.25. So here, how much is the value of this 200 kilograms? It could be more decimals here, guys. So I'm just going to be cautious with it. Okay. So if I multiply that, it's going to be 249. Why is that? Let's increase the number and check. Can you see that decimal here? There is more numbers there. So I want to keep them into 2 decimals. But when I'm going to do the rounding down, we lost some value. So therefore, it stays as 249 here. And how much is left over here now? This is going to be equal to that minus that. And what is the value here now? This is going to be equal to that number. And then what we're going to do, this one here is going to be equal to times 150 times 125, and that is 187. So if I add these two numbers, you should get 436. So what you notice when I'm doing the average prices, the numbers here and here, if you notice that, they all changed, and then the closing inventory value also changed. What could be the reason behind it? When I'm going to issue the goods, I'm not taking a value out of a particular stock. I'm going to take an average value there. So therefore, the closing inventory, when you're doing the FIFO method, it's going to be higher because we're using the cheaper stock first. When you're doing the AFCO, we are no longer doing it. So for HMRC, they normally allow you either FIFO or AFCO, but not the LIFO method. If you do the LIFO, they will say that is not acceptable because the closing inventory is smaller. Therefore, it's going to be lowering your profit because your cost of sales is going to be higher, and therefore you pay less taxes. So they will not allow you the AFCO, sorry, the LIFO method, which is the last in, first out. But FIFO and AFCO, they absolutely love it. So let's look at one more question from here, guys. This is from Osborne's. So here they're giving you those scenarios now. They're saying the following quantity, K275 in the manufacturing of its products. The company had the following quantity of K275 in the inventory. They're saying here, they enter the you calculate the correct cost and enter them into the cost column of the table below to record the issue of 1300 kilograms of K275 on 29th of January. Record the inventory balance after the issue was used. So what I need to know now, it's how much is the quantity. First, let's say the quantity we have in mind. So we have 750, 500 and 400. So the costs per kilogram, we already got them now. And what is the total quantity we have? We have the total quantity and then also cost per kg and then total. We have that number now quickly, so it's going to be 21 pounds, 22 pounds, 22 pound 50. Okay, so we have those numbers there, and this one is going to be equal to that times that. So I'm going to quickly formula this, and then this one is going to be a sum. So I have 35,750 pounds. This is the total value of my inventory. So they're asking you now, I need to find out to the nearest pound the value on the 29th of January for 1,300 kilograms of my material. So what I need to do, I need to check where I'm going to take my value from. So if I'm going to do FIFO method, I need to take all of this. You would agree, because I need 1,300. So I take one for 750. I use all of that value. And then you need to use that one, 500 kilograms? Yes, of course, because I need all of that, because after that, the total quantity is going to be 1,250 kilos. I need more. How much more? I need to take 50 kilograms of this as well. So what I'm going to do, if I'm going to do a formula, my formula will be, I need all of that plus all of that plus 50 kilograms times 12 pound 50, and then that will give me the total cost of my issue there, and that will come up to 227,875 pounds. So let me just change it to currency now, so we know that is the cost of your inventory. So I'm just going to just reduce the decimals, because it already says there. So let's say that way, yeah, because it shows the pound sign on top, so you don't need to write pound sign here. So what is the value of the balance? How much inventory is left over? Can you remember? I used up 1,300 of 1,650. All I need is now the leftover. What is the value of that balance now? It's going to be 350 kilograms, but they all belong to one particular inventory, which is costing you 22 pound 50 pence. So I'm going to say here 350 times that 22 pound 50, which is 7,875. But let me give you a quick snippet. If I add these two numbers together, I will get this 35,750, just to prove I haven't lost any numbers anywhere along the line. It's a way you check it thoroughly. Now let's look at the next one. Now this is also similar on the AVCO. What is the AVCO means for you? Is the average cost. So the time they're going to issue the inventory, this is the total value of the inventory, and that is the total amount of quantity. What I need to do, I need to find an average cost. So this one divide by that number will give you an average cost. Can you see that average cost here? Somewhere along between those three different costs, but it's more skewed towards 21 to 22. Why? Because the most of the inventory was valued at that amount. So this one I'm going to do, I need to find out how much is it. So that times 1,300 kilograms, it gives me 28,167 pounds. So let me change to two decimals. It gives you 28,167. And then what is left over again, guys? It's the same value per inventory times that 350 kilograms we have left over, because we only use 1,300 kilograms, isn't it? So 350 times that number there, and it gives you that. So just get rid of the decimals, 1,000 separator. Now let's do the formula again. Look at that formula. The formula is, If you add these two numbers, it gives you that figure there. The figure is 7,583. That is the amount you have there at the moment. Okay, hope that, guys, that is a bit clear. But before we move on, let's look at some of the accounting side of it. If I have to record in my internal accounting books about these, so let's look at these accounting codes. The number of transactions took place in January that needs to be entered into the cost accounting records of Speedy Motors Garage. So they're giving you all these numbers there, but I need to know what they're for. So let's say here they purchased 8 tires for £76 from a supplier on 30 days credit terms. So I know if it bought from credit terms, it needs to be the payable ledger control account. That is the account needs to go to. How much is the amount for? The amount is for what? It is going to be 76 times 8. So 76 times 8, £608. Again, this is going to be the same amount here. But what account code I'm going to be using? This one when you're going to do the tires. But you have to remember, this company is a garage. So therefore, the tires are materials. But for what? Direct or indirect? It is going to be a direct cost. So need to remember the direct cost, it's going to be something for a garage. But if I'm a company who is a production business and I have my own vehicle maintenance unit, I will repair my own vehicles there. They will be indirect costs because my main business is not actually a garage. I'm a production company. So in that time, if I'm buying the tires for them, and that time it's going to be an indirect cost. But here, because the company is a garage, this is a direct cost. Now let's look at that next one here. 20 liters of oil to servicing at £1.65 per liter. Okay, so we have to remember here, guys, this one is oil. We use it for servicing. Even though you have servicing here for the cars, I have to consider this may be an indirect cost. Yeah, so I can think about it. This is an indirect cost. Let's say here, can I think about it this way? Point made now. So here the tires can go directly into the storage because this is where we're going to keep the tire. So it possibly can be 5,800 because when we buy the tire, we are not putting them into straight to the vehicles anyway. We're going to keep them in my storage until I'm going to be using that in my production, which is the direct cost. For at the moment, since we are storing it, it's going to be £5,800. So let's look at this cost again here. What is the cost now? The oil, it's going to be £1.65. So 165 times 20 liters, which is going to be £33. So it's going to be exactly same. But they didn't say anything about how did they pay for it. They issuing 20 liters of oil to servicing at £1.65. So what we need to do here, we have to think about it in a way, because it is a motor garage. The answer could be twofold. Where that is originally there, because they didn't purchase it, it is already in my stores. I'm going to issue those out. So for the stores department, that has to be a credit because anything into the stores is going to be a debit. Anything out of the stores is going to be credit. So which one I'm going to think about here? This oil, will that go as the direct cost or indirect cost or servicing or anything as such? I will say still, because it's part of it, more servicing you do, more oil is going to be costing you. And these numbers here represented that. It is going to be the part of that cost, not this cost centers. So let me say this one, it's going to be 4,500. I may change my mind later, but I'm going to put what is most likely. Now let's look at the next one. The next one says return of 4 brake pads costing you £53 each, issued to the service job but not needed, so return to the stores. So here the service job, they have used brake pads there. The brake pads was returned back. So how much is that for? That is again 53 times 4. It is 212. So it's going to be exactly that number. it is coming back to the stores. So it's going to be a debit to the stores department. And then again, this one we're going to talk about direct cost. Is that going to be part of the direct cost? Because I have to stick to my guns now. Can that be 4,500 or 4,700? Or is it going to be 5,600? Because it does say here, I'm a bit confused as well, because they could have made it a little bit more clear, because they put that one servicing item there. That's what giving me that confusion. But I will check it in a minute. I'll let you guys know later. But let's say this is part of the cost I have absorbed earlier as my direct cost. So it has to come back again, because these are all part of my production. Speedy Garage, Motors Garage, they use these to do their main business, to repair or service the vehicles there. So this one is going to be out of the original cost. We put 4,500 again, but let's see what else can come up. Next one is payments by backs to external contractor to repair the garage doors of 2 hours of labor at £22 per hour plus parts of £74. So what we're going to do here, we need to check it's been a payment to an external contractor to repair garage doors. The garage doors are indirect costs. So therefore, it's 4,700 indirect cost there. And then, what is that? The money is going out by backs. So it's going to be 2,100 here, paid by money. So therefore, what is the amount? So here is going to be 2 times 22. That's going to be 44 plus the 74. That's going to be 118. So here, that's going to be equal to the same number. Oops. Equal to the same number, 118. I think I should be fine with that, but the only thing I'm a bit kind of worried about is these two. Let me check it later before we finish. I will confirm the answers whether they're correct or not. Okay, just bear with us with that one. But now, before we move on, let's look at a few more slides. We're looking at the labor. So what is the meaning of labor? This is the direct cost we attribute towards paying the staff. How they pay that? They will pay hourly, they pay by overtime, sometimes they by piecework, guaranteed minimum. Then also can be a bonus scheme there. So we're not going to look at every one of them, but we're going to look at the important concept, which is the premium. This is where the students normally get kind of a sidetrack there, because they forget what is the meaning of the premium and how that is applied to your pay slips. Okay, businesses normally consider all the hours worked as direct cost and any premium they incurred on top of that as indirect cost, unless it is covered by something called a specific work pressures. If you were doing for a specific order, that cost, that premium can be absorbed as a direct cost. But if it's a general overtime, we need to pay premium there. That will be gone as a indirect cost there. So let's have a look at it now. Some question with the labor, which you may find in the exams. So let's see the first question now. The first question is, a company employs 10 production staff, each work 40 hours a week. Production employees are paid £16 hour basic pay with £6.50 per hour premium for work overtimes they worked. During the 4 weeks ending on 20th of November, the staff worked 1,600 normal hours and 300 overtime hours and made 800 units. So they're asking you here, calculate the cost of direct labor for 4 weeks, assuming that the overtime premium is charged to direct labor. So what we now have to remember, they have assuming the overtime premium is charged to the direct labor. Okay, what if but that overtime premium is charged to the operating overheads? So they're asking here the direct labor cost. So in this scenario, if you look at that here, each and every hour they get £16 an hour. So, and if they get premium of 650, so £6.50 per hour, that is get tacked on any additional hours they do. So if I'm going to do a formula, I need to think about one thing. What is the total hours they worked? How much is the total hours they worked? If I'm going to look at that here, 1,600 plus the 300 it is going to be 1,900 there. For you to calculate the basic pay, you must multiply by this number by this £16, because this will give you the basic pay. This includes all the hours you worked, normal hours plus the overtime hours. And then also after that, the premium, it is going to be charged on your overtime hours. So here, what is the overtime hours we have? I'm going to have another brackets now. 300 overtime hours times £6.50. So altogether, it is £32,350. But let's put that into context. Let's say here, in your pay slips, you will see this way. You will see your hours, 1,600, overtime, 300. So here, how are you going to see that rate? So hold on, page up. So here, hours, rate. So how much is the rate here? The rate is going to be £16. And the next one is going to be 16 plus £6.50 is going to be £22.50. So let's say here, let's change that to number that way. Yeah. So now in your pay slip, the pay is going to be equal to that times that, and your overtime is going to be charged like that. That is how you normally see. And your total wages is going to be how much? 32,350. We found that here. But for the purpose of accounting, we do things sometimes differently when it comes to overtime. Here, we call this just overtime. Everything is done what you see in your payslip. But for the accounting, though, you'll do exactly same, Ray. But what we do here instead, we will say here, basic hours, overtime hours, but the overtime hours is split into two rates. So here, I'm going to quickly show that here. This overtime hours also charged at the same rate. And then they will get paid overtime premium on top of that one. That overtime premium is going to be still the same hours you done overtime, but this time is going to be equal to how much? It's the £6.50, the additional charge they do here. So let's do the formula now and then calculate it together. The number is going to be exactly same. The only difference is this one is overtime pay. In this scenario, the overtime premium gets done as differently. So what we now have to make sure, if this one is a direct or indirect labor, if that is a specific order, this one is specific order, this can be all assumed as direct cost, and that will be the direct cost. But if it's not specific order, they're asking you what is the overtime premium is charged to the operating overheads. In this scenario, that will be only that number. So here the calculation will be for 300 units times £6.50, which is 1,950. So in this one, all of these going to be for specific order. All of them, if it's going to be specific order, is going to be direct. But if it's not, we will call that the indirect or the operating overheads. The separate premium we charge, it is going to be charged to the overhead. Okay. This is not what the question they asked you. What is the overtime premium charged to the operating overheads? And what is the overtime premium is charged to the direct labor? Assuming. Oh, So again, I should read my questions very carefully. They're asking here, calculate the cost of direct labor for the 4 weeks. So this calculation is my direct labor. So therefore, this one they asking you, what is my direct labor if my overtime premium is charged to the operating overheads? Therefore, it's going to be everything but that number. So it's going to be these two numbers only, because these will be my direct labor. This will be my overhead. So let me just rephrase it, guys. I should have read the questions carefully. This is my direct labor. And this one is going to be, I'm going to wrap text. And this time, unfortunately, guys, I don't have time to go back and check the original listings anyway. But let's say here, they're saying, assuming that the overtime premium is charged to the operating overheads, calculate the direct labor cost per unit of production for the period to 2 decimal places. So how many items I have created? So they're asking here, assuming that overtime premium is charged to operating overheads, calculate the direct labor cost per unit for production for the period to 2 decimal places, because we know the overhead premium was charged on that unit, on that rate. So therefore, how much I can charge? It's going to be that cost, which is going to be my direct labor, divide by how many items I produced, 800, which gives you 38 pounds labor rate per item. So per item, this is going to be my labor cost per unit. So I need to do my total direct cost, which is this number, divide by number of units we have done, and that will be the amount we're going to be charging there. So that is the absorption, how we're going to absorb the cost per unit. But these questions are very seldom asked, but these questions are asked a lot. So let's have a look at this question. This might be something of fun. We can have a quick look at it. Still have a bit of a time. Yeah. Now, this one below is a weekly timesheet for one of Butterworths Limited's employees who is paid as follows. For a basic 7-hour shifts every day, Monday to Friday, basic pay there. And for any overtime in excess of basic 7 hours, on any day of the month, from Monday to Friday, extra hours are paid at time and a half, basic pay plus the overtime premium equal to half of basic pay. For the 2 contractual hours on each Saturday morning is basic pay. Any excess hours on 2 hours on Saturday is going to be extra paid at the double time overtime plus premium of the same amount of basic pay. And then they're given you for the any hours worked on Sunday paid at double rate basic pay plus the overtime premium of equal to basic pay. So that means 15 pounds plus 15 pounds, you get 30 pounds an hour. Hours worked on indirect work includes meetings, setting up equipment, and cleaning. This is charged as an indirect cost along with overtime premium. So they're saying here, hours worked in indirect work, including meeting, setting up equipments, and cleaning. This is charged as an indirect cost along with overtime premium. So we need to also think about it. This one will be also indirect costs. So I need to think about it, how that's going to be checked up in my books now. So let's say here, how much is the basic production cost here? So let's see, they worked all 7 hours there. So how I'm going to do this, multiply that hourly rate times 7. They have done the 7 hours. The total pay is going to be equal to the sum of all of that. So it's going to be equal to, no, we can say this, sum of all of that. Yeah, that's fine. 105 pounds. Now here, they're asking you, what is the hours you spend on production? 3 hours. Therefore, it's going to be exactly the same way. We're going to calculate all of it with that number. Yeah. This time, I'm going to change this F17 as a, what we call absolute cell referencing. So if I do that absolute cell referencing, what it does, it keeps that number unchanged. So here, 45 times 15, sorry, 3 times 15 is going to be 45, 8 times 120 is going to be 15, and so and so and so. So every hours I worked in the production, it's going to be my basic rate. But anything over 7 hours, you get premium of time and a half on a weekday and double time on Saturday. So we need to identify how those hours going to work. Do I have any overtime premium here on Monday? No, it's nothing there. How about Tuesday? They work 7 hours. There is no overtime for them. On Wednesday, they have worked 1 extra hour. So what is the premiums going to be? That is going to be equal to 1 times this £15 times 0.5, because it's a time and a half, isn't it? So the premium they're going to be receiving on that day is going to be £7.50. And then how about Thursday? Because on Thursday, they worked indirect for 2 hours there. We need to consider that one as indirect cost, but we are not going there yet. We're going to sort that out later on. Do they work any overtime on Friday? No, still is 7 hours basic hours shift. So there is no extra premium there. Saturday, on the other hand, they did work that overtime. So that's going to be 2 times. The premium is going to be £15 an hour. So that is going to be £30 because it's double pay. Anything with the double pay is going to be the extra amount, as the overtime premium. How about on Sunday? Both hours they work, they get 2 times, means the double pay there. Therefore, the premium is going to be £15 an hour times that by 2 hours there. And that is what you're going to get. So all of these hours now, we worked out the premiums for the overtime they have worked. It's going to be charged time and a half. And then these two are double time. So the amount has been already calculated. Now our job to calculate the indirect cost. That's going to be no difference whatsoever there. It's going to be all similar apart from this one is going to be equal to that indirect cost there. So I'm going to press F4. Then I have some more indirect cost here. So it's going to be equal to Control C, Control V, Control V. So I have found all the necessary numbers now. Let's work out the total. So let's look at this here. Let me do this. What is my total pay? So if I look at that here, my basic production pay, which is related to 35 hours I worked on the production line. So let's prove it. If I'm going to say equal to 35 times £15, which is going to be my hourly rate for as my basic pay, I'm getting 525. So every hours they worked in the production, they all my direct cost. That direct cost is for that amount. And then also anything I worked on my indirect work, it is going to be my overheads, which is going to be going under this indirect cost. And similarly, the overtime premium, anything I worked on my production more than my, what is that they call again, contractual hours, this is going to be charged time and a half for the weekdays, and for the weekend is 2 times, and including Sunday. So therefore, the extra premium we received here, and we add them all together, we got £697.50 for working altogether 42 hours, which is a not bad of an outcome for that employee. So let's look at the last one question. This one, it's going to be the one I thought is going to be slightly challenging because it involves the bonus payments. I haven't had a chance to do the equivalent unit part there, which I'm going to quickly go there and show you on my slides. So here we're going to look at what we call the equivalent unit. So what does the equivalent unit means? If I physically completed a unit, yeah, it's fine. But what if I partially completed a unit? So I need to know, what if I put my whole effort into that unit, how many full units I could have made in that same time? So for example, I have 100 units, I worked 20% of them. So what is the meaning of that? That means if I put my full effort, I could have made 20 full units, but I didn't. I made 100 units, which are 20% full. Let's see this illustration. For example, here in this question, during the month, 12,000 units were started. At the end of the month, 3,000 units were work in progress. The degree of completion for the closing work in progress was 20%. So that means 3,000 units were only 20% completed. Not necessarily we have to complete everything, isn't it? Because sometimes you just don't have time to do them. So what we do, we will finish them off and then we'll count how many equivalent units there are. So how to calculate it? This is how it is. How many fully completed units are there? So if I'm going to look at it, fully completed, it's going to be 9,000 units. We have completed 9,000 unit, but also partially completed at 20%, we have 3,000 unit. But if I'm going to make them equivalent, I'm going to multiply these two numbers together, 20% of 3,000, which will be equal to 600 equivalent units. So if I'm going to find how much is the whole of the production as an equivalent unit, we can find these two numbers together, which is the fully completed and then the partially completed unit on the equivalent basis. Add them together, we have 9,600 equivalent units there, because that is how the accounting has to be accounted for, because I cannot otherwise find a relevant cost towards the partially completed units. So this time we have 9,600 units. So let's go back to my the question here. Let's work on them. It says here, New M Limited, a manufacturing business, has a production department where employees work in teams. The basic rate is £15 per hour, and there are two rates of overtimes as follows. One of them is going to be basic pay 1, which is going to be plus 25% premium, and then the overtime rate 2 is going to be basic pay plus 50% overtime premium. So that means if they have earned £15, the 25% is going to be £3.75. That is your premium. And the overtime 2 rate is going to be £7.50 an hour overtime premium. These are the extra amount they give you for working the extra hours. New M Limited sets a target for production of every components each month. A team bonus equals to 15% of the basic hourly rate is payable for every equivalent unit of the production in the month in excess of the target. So they're telling you here the target for the May is 10,000, but in the month they have produced 11,000 equivalent unit. That means completed and partially completed units at the equivalent units basis. All overtime and bonuses are including as a part of the direct labor cost. So we're absolutely fine. They're not going to be overheads. They will be counted as direct labor costs because they can do both of them. It's absolutely fine. It's internal. Nobody bats an eyelid. It's how you're going to absorb cost. So here, they're giving you the basic hours, 450. So how many hours they have done here, basic pay, they have to calculate that here, and how we're going to work that out number. So here, overtime rate, it's not here the premium wise. This is basically the total number of hours they worked. This is the other side. There's no premiums involved here. So here, 450 times £15 an hour. That is the basic pay. And then also, what is the overtime rate for first one? So it's going to be equal to that times £15 an hour times 1.25, because we have to remember this is a quarter on top of your rate there. So altogether it's going to be 1,125. And then the overtime rate on the next one is going to be equal to that times, then it is going to be multiplied by £15 an hour times 2, because it's going to be, so not 2, 1.5, because it is going to be 1.5 times, and that is going to be 900. Let's prove it, shall we? Let's look at that basic pay here. Basic pay is 15. So what is the overtime 1 rate in that case? It's not 15 hours, £15 number. Okay, so here that's going to be equal to 1 times 1.25. So it's going to be £18.75. What is the overtime 2 is? Equal to that times 1.5 is £22.50. It just works out the number. So 2250 times 40, that's going to be 900. So they're telling you here, what is the total cost before the team bonus? So if I'm going to have the total cost, it's going to be this plus that plus that. We have £8,775. They're asking here, how much is the bonus payment? So what is the bonus payment we're looking at here? It's going to be 1,000 extra units. So if I'm going to say 1,000 extra unit, so there times every unit, you're going to get the bonus of 15% of the basic hourly rate. What is my basic pay that time? And 15% of it. So I'm going to use the 15% here. It gives me £2,250. So let's change that to that and that. So that is the bonus payment. Now, what is the total cost including the team bonus? That plus that number, 11,025. So please remember, guys, the bonus payment here, it's only for the additional units, not for whole 11,000. So it's going to be just 10,000, sorry, 1,000 multiplied by £15. It's going to be 15,000 and 15% of it, of the basic hourly rate, which will give you £2,250. Now, let's look at the further questions down the line there. They're saying calculate the average labor rate per hour including bonuses for production employees for May. Give your answers to decimal places. Average labor cost per hour for May is how many? So if I'm going to look at that here, the total number of hours they worked is 550 and the total cost is £11.25. So if I'm going to have a straight away calculation, £11,025 including bonus, divide by this 550, hourly rate they're getting is £20 and 5 pence there. £20 5 pence, because if you notice that here, all these rates are all inclusive in there plus the bonus, and they are getting at the moment £20 and 5 pence per hour averagely with that given information now. And there are 5 production employees employed in May. Complete the following sentence by filling the blanks. For total pay per employee excluding bonus, May will be, so in that case, if I'm going per employee, how much is the cost is going to be? I'm going to look at that. What you're going to have the total cost divide by 5, which is going to be 1,755 because it's excluding bonus. And they're asking here, what is the bonus payable for per employees? So how many employees are there? Again, 5. So total bonus payment is 2,250 divided by 5 employees. £450 per employee bonus they will be receiving. If there are 5 employees, they're all sharing that, the team bonus of 2,250, which is a really good question. Okay, so guys, thank you for looking into these questions, and they are really tough in a sense. I attempted one of the tougher ones there instead of there are lots of easy ones. But in the exam, when you go to get these questions, you may end up just getting a very simple, straightforward, easy questions there. But please remember, the most important part is to identify the difference between the pay and the premium. Overtime pay in this scenario, if they use the word premium, you need to think about it. That is the extra on top of your basic rate, not the whole of it. So here in the same question, if they ask you other way around, they will give you the overtime rate. So here in the same scenario, overtime premium 1 is going to be equal to that minus that. What is that going to be? 375. How about the overtime premium 2 in that case? It's going to be equal to 2250 minus that. The premium is the extra amount. They didn't ask you that. So they can ask you 2 different ways. Luckily, in this scenario, all the costs were part of the direct labor. Therefore, I didn't have to worry too much about it. But apart from that, you just have to keep an eye out on the right kind of a wording they use in this exam. Keep on trying multiple questions, and of course it is definitely going to help you, and I wish you the very best, and thank you for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and of course you